Imagine this. Researchers Kluger and Denisi looked at thousands of studies on the impact of feedback, filtering it all the way down to just the most scientifically rigorous ones. And what they found is absolutely startling. In 38% of those carefully controlled studies, giving people feedback didn't actually help them. It literally made their performance worse. Yes, you heard that right. Worse than if the teacher had said absolutely nothing at all.
So how is that even possible? Well, if you're an educator, you've probably lived the answer. We call it the recycling bin hook. You know the drill. You spend hours on a Sunday evening carefully grading and writing these incredibly thoughtful notes on a stack of essays. You hand them back, and what actually happens? The student glances at the numerical grade, their heart either sinks or swells for a split second, and then straight into the recycling bin. They never even read your notes. And the reason why is that the grade just triggered an emotional reaction, completely shutting down the cognitive one.
I absolutely love this quote from a Year 5 student who was interviewed by education researcher Dylan William. She said, "If you do really good work, you just get an excellent. But if your work isn't as good, there's lots of teachers' comments." Think about the stigma attached to that. From the student's perspective, our feedback is just an autopsy of their failure. It's not a roadmap to success at all. To them, the more ink on the page, the worse they think they are.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into research that completely transforms how we handle this entire dynamic in our classrooms. We're talking about shifting our practices from backward-looking evaluations to forward-looking, actionable feed-forward.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the wisdom of big thinkers, then move into shifting to feed-forward, cover some primary strategies, jump up to middle and high school strategies, and finally wrap up with the power of peers. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Wisdom of Big Thinkers. The Evolution of Feedback Theory. To really understand this, we need to look at how feedback theory has evolved. Each of these big educational thinkers added a vital new layer to our understanding. Back in 1989, Sadler taught us that feedback is essentially about closing the gap between current performance and the standard. Then in 1998, Black and William revolutionized the field by defining formative assessment, proving that feedback absolutely must alter future learning decisions. By 2007, Hattie and Timperley introduced a brilliant framework of critical questions. And finally, by 2013, Bood and Malloy fundamentally reframed feedback from a one-way delivery of information into an active, two-way dialogue. Over the decades, this represents a massive, fundamental paradigm shift. We've steadily moved away from a teacher-centric model of just delivering information toward what researchers Carlos and Ajavi call sustainable feedback and feedback literacy. It is now a student-engaged, dialogue-rich practice where the learner takes an active, critical role. Central to this entire shift are Hattie and Timperley's 3 critical questions. 1. Where am I going? The student needs to actually know the goal. 2. How am I going? Gathering evidence of their current progress. And 3. Where to next? Now, this is the feed forward. If your feedback doesn't answer these 3 specific questions, it's just not going to be successfully received, processed, and applied by the student. Section 2. Shifting to feed forward. Reframing the information. Making this shift starts by completely abandoning evaluative feedback in favor of descriptive feed forward. You see, evaluative feedback is backward-looking. It's grades, it's vague praise like good job or shows improvement. Honestly, it's a dead end. Descriptive feedback, on the other hand, is forward-looking. It provides specific, actionable next steps based on clear objectives, like IB learning standards. So instead of just saying, needs more evidence, it says, here is a thinking routine we used in class to help you identify a stronger counterclaim. See the difference? Section 3, Primary School Strategies. Early Metacognition. Let's look at how this works with younger learners. First up, we have the classic fist to 5. You've probably used this, right? Students hold up a fist for 0 understanding, or up to 5 fingers for complete mastery. But here is the feed-forward hack. Don't stop there. Pair that rating with identifying their next question. If a student holds up a 3, ask them, okay, what is the one question you need answered to become a 4? Almost instantly, you are engaging young students in metacognition and personal goal setting. It's a real game changer. Here's another incredibly simple hack for digital game-based formative assessments like Blukit or Gimkit. We all know kids absolutely love these, but sometimes the fun totally outweighs the learning. To fix this, simply pair the end of the game with a quick review sheet. This ensures the students actually stop to process the results of the game, reflecting on what they mastered and what they still need to practice before they just move on. Section 4. Middle and High School Strategies. shifting the cognitive load. Let's level this up for older students.
The research highlights a brilliant trick from teacher Charlotte Kerrigan called comment-only marking. When she returns essays, she doesn't write a single mark on them. Instead, she types her comments out, cuts them into strips of paper, and returns the unmarked essays to small groups of students along with a pile of those comment strips. The students then have to read the essays and match the feedback to the correct paper. It's like a puzzle, and it completely slows down the emotional reaction. They are reading to find out what the comment says about the work rather than what it says about them personally.
We also really need to leverage technology here. Traditional grading covers a paper in red ink and basically leaves the student stranded. Digital feedback with resources changes the whole dynamic. Using tools like text expanders or the Google Classroom comment bank, you can easily drop in detailed explanations that include direct hyperlinks to video tutorials or review sheets. You are providing immediate, actionable support right at the exact moment the student made the error. The absolutely crucial point here is clarity, and single-point rubrics are a fantastic way to achieve this. Traditional rubrics are usually a massive matrix of tiny text that students rarely ever read. A single-point rubric just lists the criteria for proficiency right down the middle. That's the whole shebang. It leaves open space on the left for areas to improve, and space on the right for areas where they exceeded expectations. It completely removes the visual clutter and keeps the student's focus solely on the learning standard.
Now let's talk about approximate feedback. The sources strongly suggest we need to stop doing all the precision work for older students. Instead of fixing a sentence for them, tell them, hey, there are 3 punctuation errors in this paragraph. Go find them. Instead of writing a statement, write a question that forces them to explain their logic. Or simply put a little dot in the margin to indicate an error exists on that line, and make them figure out what it is. You are shifting the cognitive load exactly where it belongs, onto the student.
Section 5. The power of peers. Building a feedback culture.
But we do have to be careful when we bring peers into the mix. High school teacher Mark Gardner points out that teenagers are just not reliable copy editors. If you ask them to do peer correction, focusing on commas and spelling, it almost always fails. Instead, we must explicitly teach them peer reflection. We need to guide them to focus on the big picture, idea development, the clarity of an argument, and how the writing is actually arranged.
To get them there, we have to scaffold their conversations. You can't just say, okay, give your partner feedback. It doesn't work. Provide highly effective sentence starters. Give them frameworks like, I like, I wish, I wonder. Have them practice using phrases like, I didn't get the part about, or maybe you can try. This ensures the peer feedback remains open-ended, curious, and incredibly constructive.
And for my math and science teachers out there who might feel like this is all just for the humanities, listen to this brilliant advice from Dylan William. Stop giving complete solutions. If a student turns in 20 equations, just hand it back and say, 5 of these are wrong, you find them, you fix them. It turns learning into an engaging detective hunt, rather than a passive reception of a grade. This brings us to what I believe is the ultimate takeaway for any educator who is burning themselves out on traditional grading. Dylan Williams says it perfectly. Feedback should be more work for the recipient than the donor. Think about that. It's a zero-stakes reframe. The person doing the work is the person doing the learning. If you're working harder on writing the feedback than the student is in applying it, well, the system is broken.
So I want to leave you with a quick challenge. Look at the lesson plan you have lined up for tomorrow. How will you redesign your next assignment to ensure your feedback is a recipe for future action rather than an autopsy of what a student did wrong? Step into your classroom, empower your students with Feedforward, and let's completely shift this paradigm. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today on The Explainer.